In this short video, we're going to look at how to finish an embroidery hoop. So with your stitching all complete, you need to tighten the screw at the top and just make sure that you're happy with the pattern placement. I then turn my hoop over and just pull gently the fabric all the way around to make sure it's nice and taut. I then push up the inner hoop, which raises the fabric slightly away from the outer hoop, and that gives it a nice finish. Once I'm happy with that, I get my scissors and I trim around the edges. Now this is using my beginner's embroidery pattern where I've pre-marked the trim line for you. So just going around all the edges there, getting rid of any excess fabric. Once that's done, we need to gather in the fabric. So I grab some cotton and I double that over and then just tie the two ends together, so effectively it's double thickness. I like to do quite a few knots in the end just to make sure when I'm gathering the fabric it doesn't pull through. So I'm going to thread that onto my needle and then I'm going to start running round the edge of the fabric with a really simple stitch. So I like to start at the top near the screw and I use a running stitch just to gather these edges. So if you watch the earlier running stitch tutorial, it's just that exact same stitch going all the way around the outside. And I leave a little tail at the beginning so I've got something to hold on to when it's time to tug the string together. So once I've made my last couple of running stitches, I then grab both ends of the cotton and I pull them together and I tie them in a knot, and as you'll see, that's gathering the fabric. It's pulling all the fabric in nice and neat inside the hoop frame, and then I can tie those ends together securely. Okay, so now we're ready to add the backing. I grab some glue and I run the glue all the way around the edge of the hoop frame. And this is just some all-purpose glue. You could use PVA glue, you could use any other craft glue, it will work really well. And I go back and forth around the edge of the hoop just to make sure it's really well covered, and I also add an extra bit in the centre just behind the screw because that lump of fabric can sometimes come loose. I then turn my hoop over and place that on top of the grey felt. So the screw is the hardest bit to trim around, so I always place that right on the edge of the backing fabric, and then I press down really hard, and you will need to leave this for a few minutes just to make sure your glue is fully dry and set. Once the glue is set, we can then trim the edges. So I like to use a really small pair of scissors to do this. As I mentioned, the screw is the hardest area to trim around, so I start just next to that point and then I just run my scissors all the way around the edge using little cuts just to snip that felt away. And I'm kind of gliding my scissors along the edge of the hoop here, which you'll be able to see, and that's what gives me a nice clean cut. So as long as I make sure those scissors are gliding along the edge, I can be pretty confident with that. And then when I get back to the top again around that awkward screw area, I turn my hoop over, so I'm checking all the edges are neat, I'm happy with them, and then you'll be able to see that just at the top I need to do a bit more work. So again, just using some really small little snips, I just get the very edges of that felt away just so it looks nice and neat and that you can't see the excess felt from the front of the hoop really. That's the reason for doing this. So once that is done, that's it. Hoop nicely finished and ready for hanging.